everybody. How y'all doing? I know it's been a minute. It's been a while. It's been some time that we had some time to sit down and actually talk together. Give me a hot second. I'm working on some. Right. Here we go. Okay, there we go. Had to do some technical setup. It's been a minute. Last time I spoke to y'all was late, maybe third, fourth quarter of 2024. Had a big season with World of Akibaland. For those who don't know, those who didn't follow, we actually joined a robotics tournament 8 weeks into late on the season. So we had 8 weeks to go. I had to buckle up and get the brothers and sisters ready. And we actually placed it. So we're looking forward to doing it again. So for y'all who was wondering where I was, World of Akibaland is always going to have me busy. So if you don't see me, you see me. I'm still working. And so I thank y'all for your patience. We coming back and we ready for this particular season, this year, this time. And so we wanted to go back over what we started last year. We wanted to go back over what we started last year because we went through phase 1 and now we're ready to go through phase 2, which is the discussion of the power of the divine self, that whole series. And I did not know the ancestral downloads that were going to come when I took this journey. I had no clue. And so it didn't just talk to me and say, we want you to discuss the power of the divine self, right? We want you to discuss the whole experience from the beginning so people understand why taking this particular journey as a individual of the African diaspora is absolutely important. And so you're like, why the African diaspora? I'm going to fill that in later, but it's definitely important. But we did the first one was an intro. And the intro dealt with, and you can all find this on DaAfrican Speaks because we want you to catch up before we get to that chapter 16. Yeah. And so we talked about this one. The intro was just introducing you to your inner magic, introducing you to your inner being, introducing you to your divine self, your best self. This is the premise in which my community comes up with the theology, the best self theology. It's not something just saying, yeah, I'm going to be good. No, it's way beyond that. People break it down to make it sound simple, but this is way beyond simple. This is actually becoming the being that the Creator called you to be for a purpose. For a purpose. And so we went over the intro and we want, if you need that intro, go ahead and go. But then we said, you know what? We're going to go from the intro to understanding chapter 1, understanding the source. This was crucial. When you start your journey, it is crucial that you understand the source in which is pulling you toward this journey. It is a source, and in how you define that source is critical. Because you can't, if you don't, and source can be the Most High, the source can be Elohim, it could be God, how Jehovah, how Allah. However you define or name the label that you put on the source. And this is what changed reality for a lot of people back when my church community, my spiritual system, sat down and said, we got to change, we got to redefine how we see the Creator. And so in order to actually understand how you exist in that magic, you have to understand how the Creator is known to be existing in the world today. And in my church, my community, my spiritual center, my church, we say God is creative intelligence, cosmic energy and creative intelligence. It is an energy field. There is no being sitting somewhere like this, looking down. No. There is no big hand in the sky that says, yeah, no. Because if that's the case, God has limits according to form, but God has no form. God has no gender. However, the energy field, which is the Creator, has put certain traits within us that mimic those abilities of the grand divine. And so that's, again, so you have to, in this journey, you're going to be redefining how you see the Most High. And we went on and we went into that in detail. And so if you got a chance, again, go back, take a look. And from that point, we started talking about the atomic particle. Now, in this particular chapter, we discussed the atomic particle. Why? Because we wanted to know how God created the universe. Because discussing how God created the universe is going to help you understand the access and the importance of that inner being that sits within you, and how the relationship, because dealing with the divine self, we have to deal with the metaphysics of everything. The smallest detail of our relationship to the world and how the creator exists in that small detail. And so we dealt with that particular small detail, and this is the easiest way for me to sit down and show you. This is the most simplest way for you to understand how the creator exists in the world. And you're looking at that, wait a minute, that's science. That's the periodic table. You studied this in school. Did you know God created this universe in perfect mathematical symmetry? You can't take now one of these elements of the world and change a number from a trillionth of a decimal point. The whole universe falls apart. Yes. One change in one of these elements by a trillionth of a decimal point, the universe will not come together, hold in existence. The world is created in exact science. And if we go back to taking a look at the atomic particle, the atom, every proton, neutron, and electron moves with energy. Moves with energy. That energy is known to be all over the universe. What? They say that energy has no beginning and has no end. It is connected to everything and all things. What is that energy? That energy is the source that moves the energy, the atom this way. That can change anything from solid to a liquid to gas. That energy field, something. Every electron, proton, and neutron has intelligence. What? Yeah, how does something know what temperature to switch to turn it into a liquid? Or turn that liquid into a gas, or turn that gas when it floats back down to a solid to bring down? How does it know? How does a chair know how to be soft? Electrons, protons, neutrons have intelligence built in it. And this world was created from the ground up, perfectly, mathematically set up for you to exist in it. Right, for you to exist in it. And if that doesn't help you understand your importance to the grand divine, then there's something wrong. This universe was created for you to exist in it. Now, what happens when you have individuals who realize that the divine energy of the creator is in all things, and so we must live with the understanding that we are all connected? Again, those who are just jumping in, we're going over the journey where we talk about the power of the divine self. We're going over all the chapters because we want to start a new chapter, a second phase this year, next week. And so I want to catch y'all up. I want y'all to be all connected. And so then on chapter 3, we went to the experience of Maya, harmony and balance. Because there used to be a black man, there used to be a black woman who understand their connection to all things and everything. And they created a society that is based off of this spiritual understanding that everything is related. And so in that balance, they came up with the 42 divine principles of Maya. And so they said, as you transition from one life to another life, we're going to measure you up and see how well did you balance with everything that is around you. With everything that's around you. It's not 10 commandments, and the 10 commandments actually came out of here. In the Egyptian or Kemetic spiritual system, and their laws of understanding actually permeates every civilized location that you can think of. There's not a government on the earth today that has not been pulling from the experience of Maya. Balance. if the universe is built in perfect symmetry, so must we live and exist in perfect balance. And so then that takes a look. You begin to sit down and say, am I in balance with the universe that's in balance, that was created just so that I can exist in it? Makes you sit down and watch your actions. Because if you look at it, once it says, have I cursed? Meaning, and we'll get into the vocal utility soon. Did I speak ill will of anybody? Did I cause anybody any stress, strife? Have I not behaved with violence? Have I not caused disruption of peace? What? And we all know that when individuals are speaking out of a malice state, where you are causing a disruption of peace. Now, I can tell you, to be honest, I'm looking at these now. There are some of these things that I can't say I'm balanced yet. I can say I'm still walking. And that's why I opened myself to this experience, so that I can govern what's within. Then we went to chapter 4. Chapter 4 is based off of the melanin, the gift of the gods. And from melanin, you have to, and this is the thing, you have to understand that being, again, coming from the Maya culture, realizing that we were the first human beings on the earth. Africans and those of African descent, Africans, African Americans, anything African, African Latino, Africans were the first. And that's who we are. And so we take a look at the melanin that they use to say that we're cursed by, and look at everything that the melanin does on our behalf. And I broke these down. Instantaneous reaction to energy fields. Speeds up your healing. Allows you to biolocate. You reach out, you're able to reach outstanding frequencies, vibrations of wisdom and knowledge. And it helps develop that cosmic wisdom. You open yourself up as an antenna. We're going to talk about that a little bit too. But that was only chapter 4. And so when you sit down and say, well, wait a minute. All creation, the world was created in perfect mathematical symmetry for me to exist in. For us to exist in. Our people were a part of that. We had cultures that focused on the spiritual technology of oneness. And all religious practices, and I had a conversation with somebody who was like, well, you're struggling with religion. No. African spirituality is vast, but everybody has religion. Your religion is what you do to express your spirituality. It's what you do on a regular daily basis. And for Africans, we knew that a part of our being was connected to that source. We're all that we do. Our melanin is a spiritual tool to connect to the divine. This is why they don't want you to love yourself. Again, take a look at that. And so when you get to that point where you accept the fact that, it's not the fact that you think about it, but I'm a descendant of the first man, which is mankind. Then you ask yourself, well, where did I live? Of course. Now this is why motherland Africa is so important. A lot of people who are trying to be conscious, they don't connect themselves to the motherland. I don't see how you can call yourself not conscious but spiritual and not feel a pull, a gravitational pull to the motherland. Now in that space, we know without a shadow of a doubt when Africa, or we can sit down and say Akiba land, the cradle of civilization and humanity, had nothing. That it lacked nothing. It was everything that you needed was there. So you can imagine what type of environment that we was able to exist in. And so it made you understand what type of people we could become, because there was no lack of food, no lack of resources, no lack of anything. And then understanding Maya, the technology, we were so open. Why? Because there was no interference from anything outside of us, but connecting. There used to be a black man and a black woman who understood that they were direct manifestations of the Creator placed everybody in. Humanity started in the continent of Africa. But back then, I could sit down and say Gondwana land, right? Or Pangea, where it was all connected. Everything. And over time, the tectonic plates on the earth started shifting. And then humanity started venturing out. But you can sit down and you can find Antarctica. You can find fossils that you should only find in Africa. It was all one place. We are not a continental people. We are a global people, wherever you stand, because it was only one land at one point. Wherever you stand is holy and sacred ground. Period. All earth belongs to the being of African descent, or the African. Think about it. So now, how special are you? And knowing that you have all of that, then what's next is understanding the vibrations of a people. When you have all things, everything that you need, and there is no mental or psychological block where it directly connects you to the grand divine, connects you to your ancestors. Your third eye is open, everything is open, and we're going to get to that point. What type of vibrations does a people manifest in a people who have no need for anything? Everything that they need is at the ingenuity of their own hands and have the ability and the resources to do it. We shared everything. Everything. So when you're thinking about vibrations of a people, you got to go back and you're looking at culture. The culture of a people. People say, well, why is it spirituality and African culture so important? This is one of them. Because you can't understand how we were able to manifest the things that we are if you don't understand the culture in which we come out of. That's deeply important. And so it's not, and I say this, Kemet, Egypt, was the baby out of empires. It was the baby out of the empires. Because Nubia, Kush, was some bad people. Bad as in good. And so you got to look at those things. Look at the belief systems. This is why people are now running back to language, to African culture. Look at our language. Look at the customs that we used to have. What did they mean? Our rituals, the behaviors of a people. Now we getting so disconnected as a people that our behaviors, we don't see each other as family no more. Our faith or our religions, which is the way we express our spirituality. Religion and faith, they go hand in hand because everybody has practices that they do to express or interact or engage their spiritual discipline. Then it's what you eat, how you eat. Right, we talk about when you become in Queen Afua's book, that the gates, the different gates that she has, how you eat is one of them. Language is another one. What? Yes. Dance is one. Ain't that something? Behavior, attitudes, everything. You got to walk and transition into particular gates where you're realizing that I'm entering into a sacred place. Where wherever I stand is holy ground, that makes what? You holy too. And we're going to get into that. There is nothing in the experience of understanding the grand divine that is not holy. And so when you start going, look at the vibrations of a people and how they held everything sacred. Even the names pointed back to the divine. The African names that we have and that we share was a reminder to the being that was coming into being, that you are connected to the divine. Every culture, everything we have was an expression of a spiritual technology. Now, one of the things that connects us directly to the divine is the vocal utility. And they say in everything it was like, first it was the void that was God. The word was God. The word was with God. God said, let there be light. As though it manifested. Now, God didn't talk, but the power of thought is the process of speaking. That's why they say, it's as a man thinketh, so shall he is. If you just think it, you just said it. Why? Because God is energy. That is a form of communication, how you think. So the vocal utility was powerful. Because in that, God could, you know, and that was a manifestation of the Creator. You can either choose life in your vocal utility or choose death. And in that chapter, we explored that because we went through the different cultures and discussed how many cultures have the experience of honoring that. And then the Christian faith, man, come on. That singing breaks down walls. When I started studying the vocal utility, how it's used spiritually, how those of Islam, when they speak and they say their prayers, the way they do it is harmonic. Why? Because they knew that they could break through psychological and mental barriers. This is why when you hear in gospel music, man, you get all emotional. When they're doing the doers in the morning, man, you listen to them and if you look at the videos, while they're doing your morning doer, next time you do your morning doer, if you do it by yourself or at your home, one love, and those who are not connected to the Islam faith, put on a morning doer tomorrow and look at the nature that is God. And what they hope is that in that process, and this is why they always show nature, in that process of singing that prayer, they see the thing that connects them most, where God created life. How beautiful and powerful. The fact that there is no sovereignty above the Creator. And anytime you speak, you're walking into the possibility of either creating life or death. I have a friend of mine who always says, is there God in that? Can you hear or feel divine energy in this situation? Or in that circumstance, in that sentence, in that phrase, in that expression of anger? Can you hear it or feel it? It tells you how you're using what is sacred. That vocal utility. So now when you understanding that, we moved on to, wait a minute. You mean my voice is the first attribute that I have, the tool that I have to use? One of the first ones is that let there be light. God spoke, which is energy, thought. I can do the same. Yeah. So then there are secrets to your mystic temple. And then, so we went down, and that's chapter 8. And that secret to the mystic temple dealt with the fact that, what's the secret? Wait, what's the mystic temple? That's you. That's you. You are the secret. You are the temple. And within that temple, there are tools used that will allow you to always connect to the spiritual realm around you. So this is why you got to watch what you input in this system, in your temple. You got to be careful because there are tools that you can either, again, go back, give off energy that will be life, or give off energy that could be death. So the secrets of the mystic temple that they didn't want us to know, and we'll get to that. These are the things that you're going to come across when you start going down that journey. You are a being sitting in a temple, and everything about it is sacred. And there are secrets that you don't know. We knew them when we first got here because there was no information that was hidden from us in the sight of the Creator, the Most High. We came with everything open just to see what we could create. And then as we separated as a people, I see you, my brother. I see you, my brother. As it separate as a people, we disconnected from the secrets of the mystic temple. And now, we're slowly gaining wisdom and knowledge of what's there. And one of those secrets is that pineal gland. There is everything about that is inside of us has a purpose to connect us to the experience of the Creator. One love, Ubaid. I see you, my brother. Appreciate you from dropping in. That speaking life or death is important because you cannot go down this journey of understanding your divine self if you are speaking death. Now, the pineal gland is one thing that they say, and please take a look at chapter 8, because one of the secrets that is within you is the pineal gland that is inside your brain. It is a transmitter. They give you foods. They even put fluoride in your toothpaste to calcify it so it doesn't vibrate. And the more you uncalcify it, it vibrates. You turn into a transmitter from thought where you can sit down and send information up, out into the ether, and you can receive information. This is where you get your ancestral downloads from. And this is why the diet is so important. The culture, what you eat, is deeply important. And this is just one of this. Because you sit down and talk about the brain and memory. You talk about how your lungs work, the oxygen, everything put together internally. Internally. Was made for you to exist as a spiritual being in an organic body. And this organic body have organic tools needed to use to access your higher sense of self, as well as get direct direction from the Most High and the ancestors. Wow. You have ability to access internal wisdoms. And so not only do you have the abilities and the tools to access it, we went to chapter 9 where we said the rivers run deep. Wait a minute. The rivers of wisdom, knowledge, understanding, power run deep. If you think you're gifted and talented at what you do, open yourself up to your divine self and see how far you can go. You'll realize your limitlessness. And so the rivers of wisdom run deep. Not only can you get access to downloads, however, there's also something called the Akashic Records, where you're opening up to the records of your life. You can see the past, present, and future. You walk into places, I've been here before. Oh, this is deja vu. Okay, so what do I do? Because what do I remember? You can avoid danger. And wait, that's also what melanin does too. Man, we are powerful beings. We're that are spirits that live in a body that are organic, divine instruments to connect us to a higher state of being. And in that access of saying that the rivers run deep also deals with the issue of your DNA. Not only do our blood holds data, but our DNA holds information needed for this particular journey. It holds information from everybody else's life. It holds information from the knowledge and wisdom of the ancestors or the people that have gone before. This is why they talk about generational curses. Why? Because it's in your DNA. You remember what happened. This is why certain movies we can watch and certain movies we can't. You remember. Unlocking that is definitely a skill set. Being able to remember who you were called to be. It's all in your DNA. The gifts that you're going to need for the assignments that you have. It's all in your DNA. And then the thing about DNA, and I don't want to stay too, this is a brief recap. The thing about the fact that your rivers run deep. There is a program, and this is the code. You see the letters in the code here. There is a program that is, they said is now, it's your DNA code. And that's how they sit down and see what's going on. There's something that is in your body, programming and reprogramming you at every single turn. If I sit down and pluck a hair out of my face, it's going to change my DNA structure saying, hey, there's a follicle missing out of this at hole 3,462. We must make it regrow. And they said when they're watching changes, it's like somebody is within you coding you. And so this is why we got to be walking down this, reclaiming who we are. Why? Because we were reprogrammed not to understand, not to have full access to all that we are. That was definitely chapter 9. So go back and capture that chapter 9. And so from there, it was the clear understanding. Wait a minute. We go from the universe, understanding the smallest particle, understanding that Africans who were first on this earth knew who we were in God. had no mental blocks according to their relationship to the grand divine, created every African name to mean something. Every piece of land, everything in nature was 100% sacred. This is how we were able to build empires. You go from that to understanding that what happens when God create humanity in the most resourceful area on the planet. You here on purpose. And you go from the land to understanding the culture to, wait a minute. Even when I speak, I'm expressing the power of God every time I open my mouth. This is why at first I didn't want to get on the internet. Because I didn't hear anything. I didn't see anything. Both from my third eye and from my other faculties. That said, it's what is going to push me towards the experience of becoming better. And then I said to myself, well, maybe it happened to the inside the river runs deep. Somebody was sending me some messages through my DNA, and or to tap into the talents of my DNA, because they were sending me some messages to say, brother, we need you to create it. Help us understand that you were made this way. You weren't made the way you are. You were reprogrammed to become that. But you were made as divine, cosmic beings. Divine cosmic beings. You are an expression of that which created you, which was divine thought. You're a manifestation of pure divine thought. And you let us make man, one male and one female. Let us make man in our image. One male, one female. Man as in mankind. Now men have made a decision, or the Eurocentric men, and the black man followed suit after he was reprogrammed, that he is superior than the black woman. No. And I'm not saying she's superior than him. No. Let us make man in our image, one male and one female. We share a bond where when we come together, we experience the full power of the divine. Because the female holds the divine feminine within her. The male holds the divine masculine within him. When we come together and we are open, we create anything that our mind can manifest. Now, we went from, wait a minute. We are cosmic beings having a physical experience. We are manifestations of divine thought. So we are consciousness first, not physical, consciousness. Consciousness doesn't dissipate. Like water, we recycle. And then you say, well, what happened? Easy. In chapter 11, we discussed the invasion of the continent. After the migration of humanity, after individuals went to areas that had colder climate. Why? Because our DNA can produce any hue of man. And so you can't have a lighter hue of man living in the continent of Africa. Back then, there was no was it sunscreen? So at that time, when you look at the history, the African history, Africa was the center of trade, center of wisdom, knowledge, education, center of wealth, everything. And of course, when you're dealing with Greece and Rome, they didn't like having a trade for food. We want what they have. We need to come get what they got. But then when they went into Africa, when you look at chapter 11, it'll show you how they realized that the Eurocentric genotype is a primitive being compared to the African genotype. We are children. We're adolescents compared to the mindset coming out of Ethiopia, that they called it, which was the entire land of burnt faces. Ethiopia wasn't the Ethiopia that you see. Ethiopia was a whole encompasses of where the burnt faces was, which is from Africa all the way to continent Africa, all the way over to India. And so they had to conquer us. They had to conquer us, and to get into that, they had to steal the legacy in which we knew. So when you start dealing with certain things and you start looking for certain things, you're going to realize, wait a minute, this was masterful. Because we cannot, as another people, as a lesser trait people, lesser endowed with melanin people, which connects to the divine, there were certain levels of spirituality that they didn't have access to because of the lack of melanin. Well, we got to steal all of that, what they did with their knowledge and wisdom. Alexander the Great wasn't stupid. He said, we're going to kill all the priests. We're going to kill all the rulers, the priests, and any spiritual people. And all we're going to leave is the laymen, the individuals who were seeking to go to the temples to get wisdom and knowledge and sit. If you walk into any government now and kill all government, kill all security, kill all teachers, what do you have? A people needing to be governed. And that's exactly how he did it. Because we had everything we could share. We weren't a violent people. Y'all saw the laws of Maya. We weren't a violent species. We didn't understand that what hunger in the cold areas of Eurocentric life in Europe, we didn't understand what that hunger was going to do. We want the resources. We want the grain. We want everything in there at our whim. So we got to destroy this kingdom. Why? Because they are more superior. And if you look at this particular one on chapter 11, I show you in Egypt, not Egyptian, but Greek and Roman history, where they were going over there saying, wait a minute. This is the same thing about Plato and Aristotle. They were educated in Africa. Educated there. And when they came back to Europe, they were not treated nice because you were given foreign doctrine. It took them a minute before they realized, wait a minute, Egypt is gone and these white guys was teaching this where they were learning it from. Egypt. And they stole all of it. But they wanted to make sure that we stayed primitive and subservient to them. Because they couldn't see themselves living in a world that they couldn't control, where they had to ask to eat. Now they got Africa asking to eat in a land that produces everything. How do you ask to eat? Easy. You kill the mindset of the individual. And that's just not Africans. It's us too. Understand slavery, the brutality of slavery, the ignorance. Wasn't about the brutality of slavery. It's the brutality of ignorance. Ignorance is is a beast that killed a people. Let's steal everything, destroy everything, take everything, and give them nothing back and let them not see themselves until they see we're only going to give them what we want them to see. And so in that space, what they do? This is when we went to chapter 12 and talked about the 10 levels of consciousness. They destroyed your level of consciousness that made you connect to the divine. And so it broke it down into 10 different levels. And so in this term, because we're only doing a recap, and I'm trying to go as quick as can, was that first level of consciousness, which most of us don't get past 2 or 3. The majority of us don't get past 1 and 2. 3 is when you slowly are becoming human. But number 1, and you can tell, and I'm doing these because these particular levels of consciousness will show how spiritual you are or aren't. Because these 2 will say, they say you're not human if you have still affected by level 1 and level 2. Level 1 is the first level of consciousness where 100% of your reality is based on your environment. You become directly a reflection of your oppression, your poverty, and your pain. So all this stuff that people are talking about, trauma, that's level 1. That shows you your lack of humanness or humanity within you. The spiritual being that connects to a higher sense of self. Why? Because Eurocentric rule was, let's disconnect them from their understanding of their relationship to the divine. So we're going to break their consciousness down. Level 2, where you only 90% of your reality is based off of your environment, 10% is based off of your spiritual awareness. Now, what type of being, and if you see it, of course, there's something you start, hey, am I better than this? Reality gets fuzzy, I don't think I'm supposed to be like this. And, you become a realist, and then, you're a little bit more open-minded, and you slowly becoming an original being where you really start, slowly questioning stuff, but you ain't really doing much. That's only 10% spiritual. Take a look at chapter 12, because it goes to the top 10, and see how much do you dive into the highest sense of consciousness. Can you get to 7? Can you get to 8? Very few people in the history of humanity has gotten to 9 and 10. Very few. Ain't that something? And they say 10 is 100% spiritually guided. Very few. And that's why they put the experience and the attributes of Jesus, the Black Messiah, out of the reach of human capabilities. But if you realize, he said, these things that I do, even greater things will you do. They're not out of your reach. Why? Because he's no different than you. He just understood what was happening to black people and went to Egypt and spent time in Kemet and learned the mystery systems and understood that, wait a minute, I can tap into my higher sense of self after his people being enslaved for more than 700 years. After a while, people got tired. We're going to be meditating. And we're going to be dealing with the issue of womb consciousness, where you can become completely clear of what holds you back. But then when you start talk about, well, I'm used to doing this and I'm used to doing that. That means you're used to functioning from a state of ignorance and poverty and oppression. And poverty is not the issue of finances. Poverty is the issue of level of thinking. It's the level of thinking. Ain't that something? Because you can be rich and be impoverished. Because you can be a rich slave. And I said, be careful. Why? Because we can create rich slaves. And then we went down, we continued on to dealing with the issue of you got to go back. And that's chapter 13, the Sankofa journey. You got to turn around and look at your history. Look at your culture. You have to it has to be a part of who you are. You got to let the kids do it. If your children, we had a conversation, it's Black History Month. I told them I don't celebrate Black History Month. And I look at the kids and said, why? They said, Jay, because you celebrate a Black history life. You got to know who you are at all times, in every situation, in every circumstance. And taking that trip, and if you haven't, those who are new to this journey have not seen the movie Sankofa, especially if you're a female, watch it. Woo! It'll shake you up. It'll shake you up. You come out different when you take a look at what was done to your people. When you go, if you physically got to go through, and that was a thing that somebody said that it's going to be harder for us because they're going to make being a slave look good, and y'all not even going to know. Harriet Tubman said I would have freed more if they knew they were slaves. Now, the modern day slave, we had a piece on that in DaAfrican Speaks. Look that up on the site. But you got to know yourself. So you got to take a time to go back. You got to go backwards and go back far enough. Go back far enough until you see the queen, till you see the king, till you see the spiritual systems that connect directly to the creator. Till you can see the person who walks across the earth to find water with a stick. There's some brothers who still got that gift, sisters who got that gift. To see those who can sit down and touch dirt and watch it grow. Know thyself. Know that you are a cosmic being here for a purpose. Not the fact that the purpose is to have a government control you. You got to know thyself. And then we went from, once you know, you get to that point and you've done the Sankofa, then the next thing is to enter into the Sasa. And I said, oh yeah, we getting into this one. Where we come back to the future. We come to the future. You study the past, come back to the future, and you take a look at who we are today. Who we are today. We are still shadows of what we could become, but however, we have more access to more information than ever before since slavery. And individuals are using what they're finding to tap into something different, something new. Yet something ancient, something old. This power of the divine self is important, and say, well, what does color and culture got to do with it? Because there's only but one God, right? Well, that's when you get into the Tale of Two Cities. It's the last chapter. We're almost done for the night. The Tale of Two Cities talk about the journey to the divine self. Yes, in certain spiritual systems, there is only but one God. You may have one God, one Most High, then you have deities, then you have your ancestors. And in ancestors, there are levels of ancestors that you can access. Some ancestors are the ones that you know, the ones that you don't know. Some ancestors have never been made human. And some ancestors are so powerful, they've existed tens of thousands of years. And when you call on them to own your benefit, that's some powerful stuff. But you got to deal with the issue of the Tale of Two Cities when you're going down this road. Which means, yes, we all believe that there is only but one God. However, the damage that Europeans, the non-African, has to go through to get to experiencing their experience of the divine self versus what the African has to do. We are battling two different things when you look at the Tale of Two Cities. White folks are dealing with the sickness of white supremacy. What? They had to declare themselves superior and say that I have to dominate you because they declared you inferior. So if you see any European talking about their conscious, their spiritual, their open, their focus, yet they're not dealing with the issue of white supremacy and not looking at it as a sickness, problem. And for black folk, we're dealing with the declaration of inferiority from that white superiority complex. They declared us inferior. And then, over a period of time, we accepted it. So that path is different. The PTSD, post-traumatic slave disorder, everything we are experiencing in this time that is keeping us from our divine self, it's a different approach to opening up your awareness. And sometimes in that space, in that approach, okay, you got to know when, okay, yeah, this is European. This is not going to get me nowhere. This is going to get me to it's going to be a stifle point. Because at one point, everything, I'm going to look around, everything, this is why they said you can't take the slave master's religion and think that you're going to find God. You can find a element of the creator. Again, we talk about the divine, the 10 levels of consciousness. You can only get to a certain level of consciousness when you're dealing with someone's faith that has nothing to do with your culture and how God really exists in this world and what God called you to do. And how the fact that you are perfectly created to access the divine self. And everything about you is there for you. What? And one of the tools you have that they don't is that melanin content. What? It is the organic spiritual tool that you need to access. And it's everywhere. It's all areas of the universe. Melanin is all areas of the universe. Beautiful thing. So you got to take a different route. Why? Because they're dealing with supremacy. We're dealing with the mark of slavery. And let's talk about it. It's a mark of slavery dating way back from when they took over Africa. Way back. Not just the ones that was hit. Way back. They started shipping us out. And because the DNA, the information is in our veins. That ignorance is in us. Now, when you're born, no, as Africans, you gain because you got to switch a different paradigm. You'll start realizing, going to left, going to right. When you go into the right side and you're embracing everything that is African and all the African spiritual systems, there used to be a being, an African being, one of your ancestors that is still in your bloodline, speaking inside of you, trying to get you to wake up, trying to tell you, hey, do you remember who we are? Do you remember why we're here? Do you remember what we can do? Do you remember what we created? Can you remember? And so this is where it's going left. Because we're trying to get you to tap into what's already in you. What's there? That ancestral relationship and connection. What's there? When white folks, Europeans, are going to the divine self, you don't see them embracing any other culture than what they have. Why? Because that culture now is dominant. they're not changing anything unless you're like Conor McGregor and you embody being Irish. So why can't we embody being African? Because everything about who we are leads us there. So next week, we're going to be talking about going right, getting to the black of things. Talking about the culture, why everything is so important to the black of things. Everything that we're doing, if there's a website, Gaia, and they talk about the practices and everything that you need to get you to reach your divine self. And when they talk about those, they always only say ancient wisdom. They never tell you the ancient wisdom is African. We taught them all. Now we're just trying to get to who we are so that we can live a better existence as a people in this world. There are some African nations who are swinging with everything they got for pure sovereignty. Garvey talked about it. That there is no sovereignty you have above you but God. You question and kneel to no man. The only answer, the only thing that you have to answer to is the Creator. And that is when you're developing a healthy fear of the Most High. Ain't that something? There's some corrections I got to do because I'm sitting there talking to myself right now, y'all. And so I promised myself in this journey this year, me slowly getting deeper and deeper because there's levels to this thing. Deeper and deeper to my divine self, I'm going to surrender a little bit more than I've ever had and produce so much more. And I will leave so much on the table so that you can eat it. Because it's time for us to become. Next week, we get into the back of black. We get into the black of things. Yeah, what it means to take these steps and some of the things that you could really actually do and embody and embrace to get here. Books that you can read and songs that you can listen to. I actually have a drum by my altar and I play that drum. When I'm called, I hear the rhythm. And I don't know why they want me to play it. And I'll sit down and it's something I never played before. Then I can see them dancing. I can see them chanting. We're going to get back to the black of things. Because that's where our power is. And if you can get that, you'll know that you're going to tap into that inner magic. Because that's exactly what it's all about. And with that being said, the African is speaking yet again in 2025. Tomorrow, the Rhino series. Yeah, you see the lion. Man, I'm in warrior mode, so I'm embodying all the animal spirits in this journey. Rhino season is coming. I'll see y'all tomorrow night at 8. One love.